Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cast coming at you on a glorious Aotearoa Thursday. We are here to deliver, a bit of a Finn swashbuckling Kiwi sporting podcast. On the agenda today, we've got a bit of basketball, we've got a bit of golf, we've got a bit of rugby league, we've got a bit of cricket, and we have football. Fairly standard niche case beat, some would say. And it's always a different beat every week with Aotearoa sporting matters just going up like fireworks around the world. Every sport, every country, every level. Shit is pretty impressive for the Aotearoa sporting beat. And we love Aotearoa sport. And we are here in honor of, in service of Aotearoa sport. We are from the niche case, theniche-case.com. Big sporting yarns to be had. Latest Lydia Ko mixtapes up. Latest Flying Kiwis edition is up. There's a big yarn about Griffin Niami playing his role with the North Queensland Cowboys. There's some Blackcaps spotlights as well. So just enjoy a bit of Aotearoa sporting reading on our website, theniche-case.com. Best way to support our mahi and our Aotearoa sporting content is via Patreon. Patreon.com/our niche case. Stock standard. Best way to donate and support the content straight up the guts. And there's an extra cricketing podcast every week for the Patreon whānau. Don't need to be a fan of cricket to support us via Patreon. That's just the extra juices are there with the cricketing podcast for our Patreon whānau. And we also deliver an email banger every Monday and Friday evening. Lots of little notes about Aotearoa sport, lots of little bits and pieces, news updates, and just all things Aotearoa sport with no drama, no fluff, no bullkaka, strictly Aotearoa sporting matters. And because that's all you want. You don't want to hear all the other stuff. You just want Aotearoa sport. And that's what we do, especially in our email banger. Sign up thenichecase.substack.com. And it's a good way to get off social media as well. Like you can just have everything delivered to your email inbox. And then maybe on a Wednesday, you check in with the website, theniche-case.com, see what's up, see what's new. And then Monday and Friday evening, everything is sent to you. Right? You don't need to do anything. Easy mahi, as some would say. And by some, I mean myself. Like I just love that phrase, easy mahi. Or, bit of Duolingo here, wildcard, moi bien mahi. Combining the languages. Very good work. Or you can go easy mahi, easy work. Usually, this is where I throw to you for a dose of mindfulness. However, I encountered, it's just the beautiful alignment of the universe. Went to a South Auckland supermarket. And this supermarket is in the trenches of South Auckland. And it's in the trenches of Aotearoa's rising shenanigans. Let's say shenanigans, close proximity to ram raids and just all sorts of antics happen around the supermarket. And when I say it's in the trenches, I mean it's in the trenches. And I was walking through the supermarket, just going about a little bit of shopping. And the butcher was out laying some meat down. And he must have had the merchandiser or a sales rep there with him. And I was just walking past. And I heard this guy say, life is not a gamble. It's a guarantee. You just need to know what you want. I was like, holy shit. Like that dude just dropped some fire mindfulness that I need to share on our podcast. And I just walked away. It was one of those moments where you walk away, you don't realize you're like walking and taking steps because in your head, you're just like, life's not a gamble, it's a guarantee. You just need to know what you want. That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah. And you're just processing it in your mind. And I'd take it further and I'd add to that by saying life is only a gamble if you don't know what you want. But if you do know what you want, then it's a guarantee because you're just working towards what you want. And you know you're going to get it because bit of Benji Marshall, bit of BMAC coaching, there's no failure. The fear of failure is gone and you know exactly what you want. So you're guaranteed to get what you want because it's full confidence, full belief in your abilities, backing your abilities and all that good stuff. So once again, life is not a gamble. It's just a guarantee and you need to know what you want.
Beautiful. How good's that? Just wandering past the butcher and getting a bit of a life lesson there. The only thing I'd add to that is I think sometimes like the idea of fulfilling that guarantee, right? Like knowing what you want. It's not something like you know what you want, therefore you get it immediately. Obviously, there's a journey to partake upon from that point onto the fulfillment. And I will say, I think sometimes what you want at the start of that journey and what you want at the end of that journey aren't always the same thing. But what you want at the end of the journey is what you get. Therefore, it is still, the guarantee of what you want, kind of thing. If you follow that one.
And as long as you're guided by what you want,
Mm.
because yeah, you can alter that, you can learn and grow, and as you grow, your priorities are going to change and progress. But I think a lot of people just don't know what they want, and they're not clear about expressing what they want with others or knowing what they want with themselves. And I think what I'm trying to express and hijacking this mindfulness is just to say, like, figure out what the fuck you want and then go
Yeah.
from there. And then you're dealing with a bit more of a guarantee as opposed to walking through life wishy-washy. Oh, it's a gamble, don't know what's going to happen today. Well, you don't know what you want, and maybe people should just do what they want instead of what they are told to do or what's like society tells them to do and all that kind of stuff. So big up the butcher. I think he was when I
The
walked
pusher.
past him, he wasn't like strictly in the meat section, he was in like the dog food section. So um just a bit of a twist on the old butcher mindfulness was that it came from the animal food section of the supermarket.
The dog butcher. It's just delivering that makes it sound like he's chopping up dogs.
Yeah.
Delivering the bits that aren't good enough for the sausages that end up in the dog meat kind of thing. Dogs got to
Which,
eat too, so
I mean, you're the meat section of the supermarket, and I'm the pet food scrap section with the mindfulness. Like, you're delivering the mindfulness from the strictly meat section, I'm delivering the mindfulness from the leftover scraps for the pet. The I was saying, because when you buy, no, don't worry about that story. Let's crack into some Aotearoa
right.
sports here. Wildcard. I just want to throw up some information. We got Lydia Ko. She is back in action this weekend. Did drop the latest Lydia Ko mixtape. She is playing at the Evian Championship in France, which starts off a nice little European run. She's got a tournament in France this weekend, and then she goes to the Scottish Open next weekend. Then you've got the Women's Open in Scotland the weekend after, followed by the Honda World Invitational in Northern Ireland. So I hope that Lydia Ko is playing in all those events. She's taken a wee break recently because she did play every event in June. And those events in June, she finished 5th, tied for 4th, and then 46th tied. So Lydia Ko's just had a nice little patch of consistent excellence. She is currently 3rd in the CME Globe rankings. She is top 5 for putts per G, greens in regulation. Putting average, she is 1st in sand saves. And her last result took her scoring average just over 70. But she should be able to get that back down below 70 with some good results. And Lydia Ko is 4th in the LPGA Tour for total birdies. So fantastic year for Lydia Ko. As I've said a few times, she has been extremely consistent. She has made the cut of every single tournament this year, which hasn't been the case in previous years. And prior to her most recent result at the Women's PGA Championship, basically a month ago, that was her first result worse than tied for 25th. 12 tournaments, and 1 tournament worse than tied for 25th. So Lydia Ko is in action this weekend, and I like how a lot of these Aotearoa sports stuff, like, they come in waves. And Lydia Ko took a break for a month, and now she's back, and there's a steady diet of LPGA Tour European excursion antics coming up over the coming weeks. So I'll be tracking Lydia Ko closely. I think that event will start overnight tonight, heading into Friday morning.
Which is so overnight tonight reminds me of the fact that the Tall Blacks also have their quarterfinal at the Asia Cup overnight tonight, where they're playing South Korea, which we were going to talk about that down the stretch just slightly, but it felt like a little bit of an alignment because you got Lydia Ko there, who is a Kiwi athlete of South Korean heritage, and don't know what the point of that is, other than the fact that it just seems to align nicely. That's all that they're basically starting. I think the Tall Blacks are on at 1 a.m. Which we spoke last week. Very developmental squad. Quite young, quite inexperienced. Definitely going over there trying to build for the future, but also still had some pretty sharp results in the pool play and stuff like that, and had a big win over Syria, and which they need, a couple of days ago, which they really needed in order to advance to this quarterfinal stage. So I'm quite excited to see how they go on that. I haven't been following as much as I would like to the Tall Black stuff, but this game is quite an enticing one for that reason, because you actually it's knockout basketball now. They're 3 games away from winning the thing, which I don't think they'll do, but that's got to be the aim at least. And there we go. Tall Blacks had the Asia Cup going on. New Zealand versus South Korea, the Lydia Ko derby.
So you're saying that's a quarterfinal, Asia Cup?
Yeah, quarterfinal.
Lovely, jubbly. What should Steven Adams be playing?
Definitely not. I mean, if the Webster brothers and Abercrombie and Delaney and Isaac Fotu and all these kind of guys aren't in the squad, you definitely don't need to be bringing Steven Adams back for that one. I think Steven Adams, the only time he ever needs to play for the Tall Blacks would be at an Olympics or a World Cup. Outside of that, you kind of either he's not going to be available because the NBA season is very long and strenuous and demanding. Either that's the case, or it just wouldn't be worth his time, because any team that he's going to come back and play in a World Cup qualifier or something like that, if you can't beat him with Steven Adams, if you can't beat him without Steven Adams, it doesn't you might be in a bit of trouble to begin with anyway. So
I'd go the other route. This, you're saying it's like a developmental Tall Blacks team, a young, fringy type of team. Steven Adams is a Tall Blacks rookie. He should be there,
Sure.
Steven Adams is a development Tall Blacks player. He needs to get some international reps. He needs to learn the rules, first and foremost, different rules for international basketball. Sure. And he needs to be ingrained in the Tall Blacks culture. Needs to learn the haka, learn a few plays, rub shoulders with chuck a name up,
Flynn Cameron
teaching him the Tall Blacks ropes and the rookie, don't go over there. That's for the veterans. You can't do that. I reckon
you sit at that table, boy.
I reckon Steven Adams should be learning about Tall Blacks basketball, but instead Wildcard, he's kicking back in Aotearoa. He is in Aotearoa, which I need to say this thought, because I was just thinking, Lydia Ko, a lot of people, well, I don't know a lot of people, but there's this idea that Lydia Ko, she's a hearty Kiwi. She represents Aotearoa at all the events, but I don't know when the last time she was in Aotearoa, and seems to, I just don't know the last time she was in Aotearoa. That's the best way of saying it. And then you've got this tall Steven Adams thing where he's our best basketball player, but he doesn't want to play for Aotearoa. And then what do we say about Israel Adesanya?
Yep.
Doesn't want to fight in Aotearoa. He wants to fight overseas. It's all very, it seems on the surface like it's strange, but it also, when you dig into it, each case makes a lot of sense. And I just thought of that because we can't judge these athletes on how they choose to spend their time. We can't say, oh, you're not a hardy Kiwi because you're not in Aotearoa. It's just it's a weird thing, and we're having a little giggle here about the Steven Adams anti-Tall Blacks type of narrative. But we also know, you explained that perfectly. Stephen Adams. So there's been a few sightings of Stephen Adams back in Aotearoa, and I was just curious because it is quite late in the off season, and he stayed because you shared you had a few of your own sightings of Stephen Adams at WNBA games after the NBA season had finished, but that might have been in the phase where like Memphis Grizzlies are knocked out and the playoffs are ongoing, and he's still there. And now he's back in Aotearoa. Of course, we're not tracking Stephen Adams' flights and all that shit, so we don't know exactly when he returned to Aotearoa, but it is good that he has returned to Aotearoa. It's that raise your mana healing, I reckon, that Stephen Adams requires. He needs to get back to the farm, raise his mana, heal all the wounds from last season, and I think this is what Te Maire Martin did. He got back to his farming after retiring due to head injuries and stuff like that, came back to the Waikato, and then he returned to the NRL. So I can see a similar healing journey for Stephen Adams. And I was actually thinking about that healing journey with Sitili Tupouniua, Roosters forward, who suffered an ACL injury. Tongan international, one of the best Tongan players. I'd say he is. I've got Sitili Tupouniua being better than Ola Kawatu as an edge forward. He's from Central Auckland, Maris Saints Jr., and I want to write about Tupouniua with a Kiwi-NRL spotlight, and my idea there is getting some Central Auckland healing. Raise his mana back up. Fantastic. He was starting most games for the Roosters, Tongan international, then he suffers an ACL injury heading into a World Cup. So I think Sitili Tupouniua, like Stephen Adams, get back to Aotearoa. For Tupouniua, get back to Central Auckland, get around the docos in Auckland, and just raise your mana, get that healing energy into your system.
Yeah, and Stephen Adams seems to do this every season as well. Like he always does come back. I did think about the same thing as you there, because I did wonder, like, it does feel like quite late for him to be returning. And I don't know how that goes, other than I'm pretty sure I've definitely seen footage going around. You never know whether this is like recorded this morning or recorded last year or whatever, but I've definitely seen footage of him like doing training stuff, like individual training things, working with some guys, and always you see him pumping up 3-pointers and those things. And normally the clips they'll use are him just swishing like 5 in a row, and it'd be like, oh, I guess Stephen Adams could shoot now. Like, is he going to start hitting threes every year? The same thing. He never does. And also, it's always important to remember, like, you just saw the clip where he hit 5 in a row under no pressure in a training gym. Did he miss 20 in a row before that, or like, what did he do the rest of the day? Is this the only 5 shots he took and he made them all? Probably not. So it's always a little bit deceptive. You're seeing what, and it's not Stephen Adams sharing the footage. It's like trainers trying to advertise their services and stuff like that, being like, look, I'm working with this NBA player, and but they're showing you what they want you to see. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just been doing that for a month or so. He did go to a couple of WNBA games. Don't know why or what the purpose was, other than I guess he just likes watching basketball, or I don't know, maybe he's got a friend in one of the teams or something, who knows. But one of the first things he did when he came back, after washing all his dishes, piling up all his dishes and taking them to the sink at the Koru Lounge, apparently there's that story going around of him just having a big hearty breakfast and then going and like tidying up his table and thanking all the cooks and everything like that, which is just like, beautiful areas. First, like, public side. I think he did some stuff with the women's sevens team as well, who were training, because not just women's sevens, I think all the All Black Seven stuff is based out in like Mount Maunganui, sort of Tauranga region, isn't it? And Stephen Adams lives, I don't know exactly where, but his farm is somewhere on the Coromandel. So he lives in the vicinity, and I guess he's just, hanging out and saying hi. But he also popped up to a Tauihi basketball game, the Women's National League as well, which I don't know how I didn't know this already, but Shan Rabadi was playing for one of the teams. Turns out Shan Rabadi, Stephen Adams' niece. So there you go. One of the oldest siblings' daughters there, and popped up to support, watched the game. I can't remember what the game was. I think they were playing the Kahu, and the Kahu smoked them. So it wasn't a big victory or anything like that. But it's pretty cool to see Steven Adams in support. No surprises whatsoever. Wearing his camo jacket, the same one that he's always wearing. It seems to have had for about 10 years.
Well,
it's iconic at this point.
Well, it sponsors product. Like, he is clearly sponsored by whatever the hunting or fishing or swan dry or whatever it is. Like, that is blatantly a sponsor's product situation. Because it's nice for you to wear it all the time because it's comfortable. But at some point, you're just getting a whole lot of those clothes for free, and you're rocking them for NBA entrances, which is obviously good exposure. But I've got a more important question to you, Wildcat. Who will hit a three-pointer in the NBA first? Because you mentioned the footage, and the Aussie Ben Simmons is the best at this type of footage. Like, here's a video of me shooting three-pointers, and I have never done it before. Who will hit an NBA three-pointer first, Steven Adams or Ben Simmons?
Ben Simmons, surely.
What?
I don't know. The difference here. Ben Simmons has made a few in the past. He doesn't like to shoot them, but he has made a few. Steven Adams has made one in his entire career, and it was a half-court heave. Like, it wasn't an actual three-point shot. It was just into the buzzer, one hand, throw it up there, see what happens.
But you're we're explaining the fear of failure. Steven Adams has no fear of failure shooting a three-pointer. Ben Simmons is all fear of failure. Like, Ben Simmons would be dropped from Brendan McCullum's cricket team because he won't be able to help him.
Yes.
He won't be able to do anything for his fear of failure. Like, Ben Simmons needs to sort that out himself. He won't sort it out himself. So he's back playing domestic cricket while BMAC is the coach,
He's getting his reps in for the Otago Volts or the whatever. That's the point there, is that the big asterisk is Ben Simmons has to play basketball in order to make a three-pointer. Like, if he plays, I'm sure he will make one at some point. He's going to be left wide open, and he at least practices them a lot and has been told he needs to work on it and been drilled into him. He has the fear of failure, but if you shoot 5, you might make one, still. But he has to play to do that. He has to get on a court, and that seems to be the issue at the moment. Is you don't even know what's going on there.
Question: Steven Adams is playing every game for the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah. He will definitely shoot a three-pointer before Ben Simmons. That's for damn sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if I would be surprised, but I'll throw it out anyway because it's a good joke that maybe Charlize Ledger-Walker makes a WNBA three-pointer before either of them makes an NBA three-pointer next. Got to wait at least 2 more years, but Yeah,
you're getting a bit ridiculous there.
That's why I said I held it back, because Ben Simmons has only missed 1 year. He's going to at some point play and shoot and whatever.
No, are you Australian? You're giving old Ben Simmons a lot of love here.
Steven Adams's job is not to shoot threes. When he's in that place, he's got his back to the basket. You know what I mean?
He's going to do it. He's definitely going to.
I'm sure he will at some point. He's got to. He's not going to be one of those guys who ends up one.
You gave a 2-year buffer, and I'm saying Steven Adams is going to shoot a three-pointer. He's going to score a three-pointer within those 2 seasons, guaranteed. And I don't want to hear any more about it, because it's blasphemous that you're even considering Ben Simmons, who would not be selected in Brendan McCullum's cricket team due to fear of failure.
Certainly not.
You're suggesting he might shoot a three-pointer before Steven Adams? That's ridiculous.
Can I throw out a different comparison? Is, how Neil Wagner's an avant-garde cricketer because he only plays test cricket. He doesn't even hardly play domestic cricket anymore. He basically just plays when the tests are on. And I keep thinking whenever I see these backup T20 bowling lineups, I'm like, why not just give Neil Wagner a go? But then at the same time, I've started to come around. So he's 35 or 36 now or whatever. At this point, it would kind of spoil it if he played anything other than test cricket. We've got to the point where it's just this cool thing about his career where it's, if he played a 2020 international or in an ODI, it kind of ruined the fun. And I really do Steven Adams, I'm sure, will make a 3-pointer at some point, probably in the next 2 seasons again. And maybe even a deliberate one that was designed for him, because he does practice it. He obviously is trying to add the toolkit. But I also do love the fact that at a time where people think that every big has to be able to shoot, and if you can't space the floor with your shooting, there's no point being on the court. And yet we consistently see Steven Adams having a winning impact on teams that he plays for without even attempting 3-pointers, and creating spacing for others through his screen game and stuff like that, and offensive rebounds and things. That's kind of avant-garde NBA stuff as well. And it almost spoil it if he starts doing like Marc Gasol or Brook Lopez or whatever, like late career just becomes a 3-point shooter. Like I hope he hits a few down the line, but I also don't really, I kind of like him being a guy who's never going to attempt like 2 per night or anything like that. Like every couple games, maybe we might get to that stage, but I kind of want him to stay the avant-garde guy. Like I've come to a point where I want Neil Wagner just to never play anything other than Test cricket.
Fair. I'd also suggest my vision of Steven Adams, the 3-pointer he scores, is more like a half-court heave. Like, I'm not saying he's posted up anywhere beyond the 3-point arc, getting a transition 3. Like, he is just bombing a 3-point from somewhere.
If he ever pulled up in right? Transition.
So he can maintain some avant-garde Wagner type of vibes. He will also score a 3-pointer. In the same way, Wildcard, rugby union can grow to be a even more globally competitive sport, and the All Blacks can lose, and the All Blacks can still be the best team in the world. Like, these are ideas that can happen together. It's not Steven Adams shoots a 3, it has to be a catch and shoot Klay Thompson situation. Steven Adams can shoot a 3, and it can be a half-court heave. And I'm actually like, my vision, before we get into some football, my vision is he gets the ball, he throws a full court pass, but it goes in the hoop. So he has to get the ball in the field of play. He can't like throw a pass from the baseline as like an out of bounds and inbound. Yeah. He has to get the ball and he fires a pass, and that pass is the 3-pointer. Because he's so good at passing, and then he does a shit pass, but it goes in the hoop. So it's like a win-win-win-win-win. Wins all round. Steven Adams, I love it. Fabulous, Corridor. Flying Kiwis wildcard. I don't really know what's happening specifically, but everything you've described to me over the last few weeks is just like building. Everything's building for the Flying Kiwis. Like, squads are being built, players are being built. Like, players are, as you said on the variety show and recent podcasts, it's preseason for some of these teams and players. So they are building their careers. And this is a really important time for individuals to build their careers, and for teams such as, the Wellington Phoenix men's and women's, or other teams with a lot of Kiwis where you can have a more collective perspective. They are building out their rosters at this time as well. So do we have any more building updates for the Flying Kiwis? Do we have any more nails nailed in, frames being established, the concrete pad being laid down, a couple of lads on smoko? Like, what's the building situation for Flying Kiwis?
Well, even just this morning, we had 2 more pretty enticing transfers where Vic Esson has signed with Rangers in Scotland and Rebekah Stott signed with Brighton in England. Esson first, because this is like, I'm trying to think of, like, Chris Killen played for Celtic back in the day. It's not like there hasn't been a Kiwi presence in Scottish football before, but right now it's a little bit like, so the 3 in the women's side of things, the 3 teams that pretty much run the show, which is pretty competitive because there's only 2 teams that can make Champions League qualifiers each year, and only one of them's going to win the title and whatever. Glasgow City's pretty much been the dominant team for the last 15 years. And Michaela Moore signed with Glasgow City for this year. Last couple years, Rangers and Celtic have come into the mix a lot more. Olivia Chance played outstandingly for Celtic last year. Vic Esson's just signed with Rangers. Not I haven't seen Liv Chance in any of the preseason stuff with Celtic yet, so I'm not 100% sure if she's gone back there or not. I don't know what her contract length was, like if it was a multi-year contract, just a 1-year deal or whatever. And like I say, she had a really good year there. Lots of goals, lots of assists, playing from central midfield as well, so really impacting things. If she wanted to try scoop a move to like the WSL or something like that, which she has played before in the past, she'd probably have a fair bit of leverage in that way, but also good position at Celtic. So like that, she's got options and she's got good options. But if she does go back to Celtic, then you will have the 3 best teams in the Scottish Women's Premier League, each with a New Zealander on their roster, which makes it hard for trying to pick allegiances and whatever. And let's not forget as well that Katie Rojas signed with Hearts, who are not going to be in a title race, but they're a mid-table team in that division as well. They made the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup last season and lost in extra time to Liv Chance's Celtic. And we've also got Alex Grieve, of course, on the men's side of things, playing for St. Mirren and doing pretty well there. So all of a sudden, Scotland is another little hub of Flying Kiwi stuff. But then also this Rebekah Stott news is even bigger because, of course, Rebekah Stott played for Brighton 2 years ago. She signed with them, was there for about half a year, didn't play a lot, only played about 4 games or something like that. And the reason was she got sick and she left halfway through the season because she had her cancer diagnosis, moved back to Melbourne where she lives normally, went through all the treatment, came back, played for Melbourne City, has been playing a bit of NPL more recently, which I assumed meant that she was probably going to have another year with Melbourne City and then maybe try test the waters of overseas and, finish some unfinished business and whatever. I guess she's just ready to go straight away, signed back with Brighton again 2 years after. So she's like, she signed there, she left with cancer, now she's back there. It's kind of a beautiful little closing of a circle there and a really nice move on a personal level for her, but also on a professional level, because that's another Kiwi in the WSL, which is one of the fastest growing leagues on the planet. Also got Anna Leet, who's moved to Aston Villa from West Ham, plus Ria Percival still under contract at Spurs, although coming back from an ACL injury, likely to miss the first half of the season. But sometime around January, February, hopefully she'll be back in time to get a good run of games ahead of the World Cup, which starts in 364 days, I think, from now. They ticked the 1 year to go anniversary earlier this week. And who's the other one? CJ Bott at Leicester City, who signed there for the second half of last season, was injured for a lot of it, so only played a couple games, but is under contract. And I think they're left back, well, one of their fullbacks anyway, they had 2 fullbacks who were starting the majority of games for Leicester. One of them's left, and I think signed with, I think she might have even signed with Manchester United. So there's an open spot there for a fullback for CJ Bott. No doubt she was probably signed with that intention of let's give you half a season, get in the mix. We might be losing one of our key players here, and you're the person we want to take that role moving forward. Well, there we go. So the WSL has got a little bit of a hub thing going on, and there were rumors of Claudia Bunge moving to either Brighton or Manchester United. I wonder if Brighton signing Rebekah Stott means that they've already now signed the centre back that they wanted, and they might not want to be signing 2, and more the merrier if that does happen. But Manchester United don't have any Kiwis, so there's still an opportunity there. Who knows? A lot of these, there's still a month or so to go before, in fact, longer than that. It might even be 2 months before the WSL starts. It's a bit later than usual. It hasn't had to be moved forward like the Premier League because obviously not affected by the Men's World Cup in November. But yeah, 4 Kiwis in the WSL. Potential of more to follow. There's not Claudia Bunge is the obvious one, but who knows? Some of these things just happen out of the blue sometime. So there's another hub. And then behind me on the YouTube stuff, I'm still very excited just because it's so different in just different to any other kind of scene that we normally get in Flying Kiwis, talking about Scotland becoming a hub, England, a lot of the Kiwi football has been playing Britain for a long time. The UK has always been a constant home. Never had someone in Chile before that I know of. So I'm very excited to see if Marco Rojas, who by the looks of it, I think they've given him the number 10 jersey and the right winger. They had an Argentinian guy who's been playing right winger called Solari. Seems quite good from what I've seen. He's just signed with River Plate back in Argentina. So they've sold him just as they buy Marco Rojas. seems like there's a nice little Marco Rojas shaped hole there for in their starting lineup for him to move in. They've promoted him a fair bit since he turned up. So very excited to see, hopefully, I think they play on Sunday morning. And I didn't realize this as well, but Chilean times to New Zealand times, not so bad. Like the 9:30 a.m. kickoff on Sunday, I think their latest game. Colo Colo are in a title race as well, so it's big times. There's like a third of the season to go. They need to keep winning games. They're about 3 points clear as it stands. I watched their game last week, absolute stitch up, because I looked at the team and I saw Rojas on the bench. Thought, sweet ass, Rojas straight on the bench. Later on, I looked it up when they were rolling through other attacking subs and not bringing him on, and I hadn't seen a glimpse of him on the bench or anything. They've just got another guy whose name is Jason Rojas, so it was a different Rojas. But you know, Marco will get his time soon enough. That game was nuts as well. They were absolutely dominating. Finally scored to go 1-0 up after about 75 minutes or something. It was a goal that was disallowed for offside, but then the VAR went back and overruled that, and they gave the goal. Then they can, after having worked so hard to get a goal, concede straight away. Just a sloppy goal, the only chance the other team had. It goes into, I think, the 99th minute, like the 9th minute of stoppage time, before finally they score a winner from the penalty spot, from a foul that the ref didn't see, VAR did, overturned, lots of arguing, so you can imagine why the stoppage time got dragged out so long. Then the dude just coolly slots it for a 2-1 win. 90 plus 10 as the final whistle goes. But beautiful stuff. Important 3 points, and Marco Rojas is going to find himself in that absolute cauldron of Chilean football, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Is he one of the most winningest Flying Kiwis off the top of your head? Because he's won stuff with Melbourne Victory, right? Like, so if he wins a Chilean Prem with Colo Colo, that would give him, I don't know how many victories he had with the Victory, or championships.
At least one.
Yeah, so if he goes one in Australia and one in Chile, that's 2 Prems right there. I don't know. Maybe there's like Aotearoa type of characters or like those type of wahine players who have similar winning records, but as far as championships go, but don't know how many other blokes are doing that overseas. Some might do it in New Zealand, but overseas is interesting.
Yeah, Auckland City players definitely would put their hands up, no doubt, but we're not counting that. Same with Canterbury Pride women's players.
And so, I mean, like, Albert Riera is out of the equation here.
Yeah, because he never won an A-League with the Phoenix while he was there. Unfortunately, he was a very good player, but didn't quite get that far. A couple of names do spring to mind. Aotearoa is one of them. Won 2 or 3 championships, I think, in America. Definitely in the A-League, Rebekah Stott won a few with Melbourne City, and Costa Barbarouses has won about 4, and he's won with 3 different clubs as well. Because he won with Brisbane early on when he first left the Phoenix, then he won with Melbourne City, and then, Melbourne Victory. I can't remember if he won 2 with them or if he won 2 with Sydney, but he definitely won at least 2 more at some point as well. So maybe he'll add a 4th with the Phoenix, 4 different clubs.
But that's all in Australia,
titles, right? That would be... that's what, sorry?
That's all A-League championships.
Yeah, that's all A-League stuff. Same with Rebekah Stott. So I'm trying to think beyond that. You don't get that many.
Yeah, so Rojas,
titles.
He's doing
not that often.
He's doing 2 different countries, 2 different leagues. That's juicy. I want to see old couple of Colo Colo supporters right here. Big Colo Colo fans.
For sure. Colo Colo Senos, I think they called them, something like that.
Big time for Chile as well. Got the rugby union team qualifying for the World Cup to defeat the All Blacks down the track. You know, it's a fantastic time to be alive.
Hopefully the women's team come to the World Cup next year as well. We'll find out that in a week or 2.
Women's hockey team, they won their first World Cup game a few weeks ago.
Marco Rojas is just sort of riding the wave there. There we go.
The Blackcaps have had a series win over Ireland in their T20 International Series. They won the second game against Ireland overnight. 2 fairly impressive victories, wildcard. Like, just the Blackcaps doing what they do in this format. And from that second game, we had some Dane Cleaver runs. Basically, the top 5 all had little scores or big scores or some kind of score. and a couple of lads went large, which was good. And then different blokes took wickets. Bracewell, little hat trick. Ish Sodhi, 3 wickets to 7 RPO. And everyone's just playing good cricket. So we can kind of keep this light and breezy here, wildcard. I don't know, like we can do a good hour on any Kiwi sport, to be honest, but we don't need to. A Blackcaps T20 International Series against Ireland doesn't feel like a space to dive deep into Blackcaps matters. We're kind of just rolling with this series, keeping it light, keeping it funky, and just taking each performance as it comes. But then as we move forward through this T20 European tour, because they do face Scotland a couple of days after the third T20 against Ireland, then we're going to start to see some performances stack up on top of each other, and we're going to see who emerges as like really impressive T20 players from this European excursion. So we can kind of just breeze through some of the stuff wildcard. What's something that just stands out for you, like a learning, a takeaway that you've gathered from these first 2 games?
Well, Dane Cleaver's a nice one, because I got up meaning to watch because the game started at like 3 a.m. or something this morning. I got up meaning to watch the highlights on Spark, and they didn't have the highlights package up, the bastards. So I ended up just watching like the first innings and just living with my thumb on the skip 10-second forward thing in between all the deliveries. So I watched the first innings of that, and Cleaver looked sketchy early on. Like he came in, he looked nervous, hadn't really scored runs internationally before, then started to get a couple. I think there was a full one which he sort of stepped into, a full and wide one that he sort of lifted just over cover, but hit it really nicely, like a nice lofted cover drive. Went to the boundary for 4, and that kind of got him going. And then very soon after that, he slugged a 6 and over mid wicket, and then looked pretty comfortable from there. At one point, there was a little like, I guess what we're starting to become known as like that little Joe Root scoop thing that he does, where he sort of just like lifts it over, not so much like the McCullum over the keeper, but like really deliberately trying to lift it over short third man kind of area. He hit one of those for 6. It was gorgeous. Like, and then he just got better as it went along. And I think his wicket keeping has been really sharp in both games. Like he's had a couple of really nice moments there as well. So I think we sort of mentioned this on, I think it must have been the Patreon one, like Tim Seifert's a bit of a forgotten man at the moment. I don't think anyone will have thought of him for a little while either without listening to that chat we had, because like Dane Cleaver looks every bit a 2020 international wicketkeeper. And we know Cam Fletcher has pretty much had an identical case to be in this same position as well, and has been considered like the next man up in test level based on selections. So, and Tom Blundell himself isn't going anywhere. So there's some nice wicket-keeping stocks here, but it looks like unless Devon Conway is going to be like it's 2020 wicketkeeper in a first 11 moving forward, like he was sort of middle of the World Cup range, which was a bit of an afterthought, but also did a perfectly good job there until he punched his bat and broke his hand. But Dane Cleaver, maybe, because I don't know if Finn Allen really has a spot in the first 11 right now. Like he might be sort of like get your reps in, work your way through, and when Guptill retires, that's you. Like you've got that spot. We're building you up for the overlap here. But I don't necessarily, because if you're going to pick him to open, Daryl Mitchell can't open, and then if Daryl Mitchell isn't opening, does he make the team? Or because how do you get Conway and Williamson back in there, or does one of them open, or whatever? Like, I think probably our best opening partnership in 2020s would be Guptill and Conway, and especially if you've got someone like Cleaver in the middle order, Phillips is in good form, Michael Bracewell has announced himself as well, Daryl Mitchell's in amongst, all these dudes, Jimmy Neesham, like. I don't necessarily know that other guys have a shot for something up for grabs, but because wicketkeeping is such a specific role, I think Dane Cleaver maybe has a bit of a clearer path to that kind of status, and he's gone a long way with a big innings there and some very tidy glove work. Gone a long way, even in just 2 games, to at least putting his hand up and saying, "You didn't pick me for nothing. Like I'm good enough to stake a claim here." That's
a interesting pocket just to continue our kōrero here because we, like, you look at this batting lineup from the second T20 against Ireland. Finn Allen can wicket keep. He wicket kept Super Smash games. Dane Cleaver is a straight up wicket keeper. Glenn Phillips, sometimes wicket keeper, sometimes offie. Like, more of an offie right now. And then other names you mentioned there, Tom Blundell and Cameron Fletcher seem like they are being groomed. Well, Tom Blundell is the test wicketkeeper. It seems like Cameron Fletcher is being groomed as a backup test wicketkeeper. And then Tim Seifert appears to have fallen out of this little frame. Devon Conway has been a wicketkeeper at the international level as well.
Tom Latham is another one.
And Tom Latham
not really in the 2020 picture, but he could be, you know.
Well, he's the ODI wicketkeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
So that seems like a leisurely job because you don't
three different keepers in 3 different formats as well.
Well, like ODI wicketkeeper, you're not doing anything. You mentioned Neil Wagner doesn't play cricket. Like, if you're the ODI wicketkeeper, you're like, oh, where's my wicketkeeping gloves? Like, Tom Latham's
I'm sure I packed them somewhere.
Well, he packs them and he's like, haven't used these in a while. Like, they're a bit smelly, but, you know, mold isn't growing on them. Like, he doesn't do any other wicket-keeping mahi, and they barely play ODI cricket. So it's a strange phenomenon for him, and we often forget, who's the ODI wicketkeeper? Well, for whatever reason, it is Tom Latham. And that's actually a weird scenario. Like, Tom Latham is certified number 5 wicketkeeper batter in the ODI team. And he doesn't do any other wicket keeping, and he's the test opener. It's just an interesting pocket, but then again, considering all these other wicket keeping lads, it's not unique. Like, it seems like every one of these little wicket keeping situations has a bit of funk to it. Like, whether it's Finn Allen or Devon Conway, sometimes wicket keeper, sometimes not wicket keeper. Neither of them. Like, if you're playing for Wellington Firebirds in the Super Smash, Tom Blundell might be away on test duty. But if Tom Blundell's there, he's the wicketkeeper. Finn Allen and Devon Conway are running around in the field. And then don't want to get caught up in the mangroves here, but if Blundell's away on test duty, then Conway's also away on test duty. So then Allen becomes the wicketkeeper. I'm interested in who's the better wicketkeeper, Finn Allen or Devon Conway. What have we known about Cameron Fletcher over the last few summers? One of the best Super Smash batters in Aotearoa. So I'm not necessarily sure what the difference is between Dane Cleaver and Cameron Fletcher. So it's like, the wicketkeepers are laid out for us, right? Like, Latham, ODI wicketkeeper, Cameron Fletcher, backup test wicketkeeper, Dane Cleaver's getting a crack at the T20 job. I think I was writing about this like in 2017. Like, all these dudes were hot in Aotearoa. They were all like competing to back up BJ Watling. Like, of course, there's some cricket coach out there who could spot the difference, and you, like, maybe that's you because you just said Dane Cleaver's been pretty nice behind the stumps wicketkeeper. So maybe you should do some research and video footage here. But like, is Tom Blundell that much better of a wicketkeeper than Dane Cleaver or Cameron Fletcher that he deserves the test keeping job, which in theory is more prestigious? Or is it he's a better batter, better equipped for test cricket? Because that's weird, because then you go to Cameron Fletcher, he's the one who's like consistently smashed Super Smash boundaries, but he's the test wicket keeper backup, and Dane Cleaver's the T20 international keeper. I don't know who the best keeper out of those dudes is, let alone what they offer with the bat. And now you're kind of telling me you want Dane Cleaver in the first 11 T20 team, which I don't disagree with. It's just a weird scenario right now, and none of this is right or wrong. Like, I can see Dane Cleaver being in a first 11 T20 team. But it's so strange because, like, he has just suddenly leapfrogged Tim Seifert. Tim Seifert's barely a factor right now. And then you've got the part-timers, and then you throw in Latham. Like, it's all very weird and interesting. Like, it's not like, here is Aotearoa's best wicketkeeper batter. His name is BJ Watling. Like, that doesn't exist right now. And of course, getting caught up in the mangroves, like, they still had a bit of Luke Ronchi and the white ball and all that shit. Like, BJ Watling wasn't exactly the T20 ODI wicketkeeper that whole time as well, but it's all very convoluted. These estuary waters are quite murky, but it's in a fun way, because you do get Dane Cleaver popping up to bat 3 in a T20 international, and you do have all these situations that I just explained.
Yeah, it's definitely, it is in a fun way, because it's like, they're not scraping the barrel here. The point is that these guys are all very good and have put up consistent cases over several years of domestic cricket to say that they should have these roles. I think Blundell's main difference is just that he got in earlier, like just that he was selected as the test guy a bit earlier. Therefore, he's had some experience. And at this point, like, the runs he's scored, and he's not done anything wrong with the gloves. He's been a good, solid wicketkeeper. I don't know that he's better as a gloveman than Fletcher or Cleaver, but he's scored multiple test centuries, and that's worth something. You know, you do that, you get rewarded, you get to continue playing. And it's not like, I don't know if he's better than them. That's because they're also really good. Like, it's because each of them is good enough that you can start picking on like little things. And that's kind of the point, isn't it? Is like, had they, maybe some coach can see intricately enough the differences or the logic ideas behind or the theories. Sure, I'm sure there's plenty of that. But had they said, Dane Cleaver, we want you to be the backup test guy. Cam Fletcher, we want to give you an opportunity to play as the 2020 wicketkeeper when we pick a specialist. Because I still kind of think Devon Conway still gives the best balance if he's the keeper. It's only 20 overs. You don't get that much to do. And it means you get to pick someone like Michael Bracewell or something, which maybe makes more of a difference to your overall balance of your team. Even if he might miss a stumping now and then that the others might have gotten, I don't know. But like, just score the runs, who cares? I still think that's probably the case, but they do obviously want to have a specialist guy who they can rely on, because they tried it for a long time with Tim Seifert. Now it seems that it's Dane Cleaver. But yeah, like I say, if they had said, Cam Fletcher, we want to give you a shot at the 2020 gloves, and Dane Cleaver, we want you to be the test backup, would that make any difference? Like, do you think that it would actually, like, would that be any worse off than what they're doing here, or any better off? Like, it sort of feels like it's interchangeable. It's almost a little bit like, we'll pick one to do one, we'll pick one to do the other. It doesn't really matter which one we pick to do either, though.
And then it kind of, like you said, Blundell's there because he scored runs. So that just sets up everything else. Like, Cleaver's scoring runs. So that's his. And what have we said about Blackcaps entering the Blackcaps for a while? Take your opportunity. All these dudes take their opportunity. Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips. Like, Glenn Phillips, Daryl Mitchell, they scored runs on test debut. That helps. Kyle Jamieson instantly took his Blackcaps opportunities, and that set him up. So I think it might just be as easy as who's scoring runs. And then it's just like, because Fletcher can score white ball runs, and Blundell's not a... Cleaver and Fletcher feel a bit more Tim Seifert-ish in that they have the power. Blundell's a crafty little wicket-keeping bugger, though. Like, he knows he can access the boundary in various ways. Like, he's got some tricks as well. So without like getting into the mangroves about wicket-keeping skill sets and prowess and efficiency of movement and all that type of shit, none of them stand out as like dropping chances, right? So it's hard to like really dissect the differences. So then you're just getting into who's scoring the runs. And yes, there is like Blundell. There's no reason to drop him. So you're not just going, oh, Fletcher's scoring more runs than Blundell, so Fletcher's in. Like, that's not the situation. It's just like, when it comes time to decide between players, that's a key indicator. Just quick question to wrap this up. Is Fletcher your T20 wicketkeeper? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying it's all interchangeable. It's kind of like he could have been.
Who is your guy?
I like Dane Cleaver. I saw him score 100 in the Super Smash. Was it last season? I think it was last season.
So you're
And
saying Cleaver wicket keeping ahead of Devon Conway wicket keeping?
well, no, if I was picking the 11, like I said, I think the balance of the team, you get more options if it's Devon Conway with the gloves. But Cleaver is a better keeper, and they do seem to, maybe Conway doesn't want to keep. Like maybe he doesn't feel comfortable with that, in which case, yeah, like sweet. We pick a wicket keeper, and Dane Cleaver is as good as anyone else. And like you say, scored good runs in his second opportunity with the bat. That's how you command more opportunities. Like that's how it goes. You do that, you don't have to worry. You don't score runs, and you find yourself in a Tim Seifert situation, or like the many bowlers we've talked about who have gotten opportunities and not taken enough wickets, or not been able to restrict runs and stuff like that. Take your opportunity, and you're sweet. And Dane Cleaver seems to very, very small sample size, but seems to be doing so.
All these dudes we're talking about, they have one thing in common. And that they started playing domestic cricket between 2010 and 2012. And so they're all mature. They're all hovering around 30 years old. Like Glenn Phillips is not in the wicket-keeping discussion, so fuck him. He doesn't matter here. He's an off-spin bowler. He's a bit younger, but all these other dudes are around 30 years old. They've been playing domestic cricket for a long time. Even Michael Bracewell, Daryl Mitchell, those characters are the same. And I just have confidence in them because of their maturity, because they know who they are. They know their tūranga waiwai, their mana from a personal, spiritual perspective, but as cricketers, they know what works for their game, their skill sets, their strengths, their weaknesses, and so on and so forth. Someone at the opposite end of that chart wildcard is Reece Walsh. And
to
start our rugby league kōrero at the back end of this podcast, earlier in the season, you asked me something about the Warriors, and my answer was everything apart from Reece Walsh, because all the Australian media is going to look at is Reece Walsh. All the headlines, all the highlights are Reece Walsh. So if you want to learn about Warriors footy, look at everything else apart from Reece Walsh, because that's going to inform you about the team and just like that was at the start of the season. So their chances this season, learning about them as a organization moving forward. There's been this constant, like, ever since Reece Walsh joined the Warriors, there's been stories like literally he signed a contract with the Warriors, and then there were yarns about him not going back to Aotearoa. There were yarns about him going to Redcliffe or joining the Broncos and stuff like that. So that's been an ongoing situation since this all started. And now there's been a bit of, you look around the media and there's the Warriors stories are about Reece Walsh being dropped. So I kind of feel vindicated here, wildcard, is that all anyone wants to look at with the Warriors is Reece Walsh. And you asked me prior to the show about like the situation with him leaving at the end of the year. Does that impact his standing with the Warriors? Like if you're a team in a competition and you're not competing to win that competition, with the Warriors just don't feel like they're competing for anything right now, and that's all good. Like we're building into next season. Flying Kiwis building, the Warriors are building as well. And you've got this player who's leaving at the end of the season, and you might have other options that are more interesting in that position. How would that skew the Reece Walsh situation? It's a bit weird because Chanel Harris-Tavita is also leaving.
Yeah,
and he's in the fullback
that is
role.
A bit of a spanner.
That's a bit weird, but I just haven't been convinced that Reece Walsh helps the Warriors win games, which when you look at what everyone else is thinking sounds a bit crazy. But then I said Reece Walsh is just like the icing on the top of the cake, and his footy just doesn't really seem to be helping the Warriors, and he's still 5th in total errors for the NRL. He is the fullback with the most errors in the NRL. He almost averages 2 errors per game, and Reece Walsh 68 tackles made, 36 tackles missed, 65.4% efficiency tackling, which is a little bit better than 50-50. So if you're missing half as many tackles as you make, that's not very helpful. And a lot of the benchmark is like anything over 90%, you're doing pretty well. Reece Walsh is nowhere near 90%. And when you how does that impact Warriors footy? Well, their errors are obvious because you're just putting your team under the pump all the time. And then a lot of the fullbacks, they defend in the front line closer to the try line. So you're like, oh, fullbacks don't need a tackle. But when you watch NRL teams defend, the fullback is in the line of defense. And then as the ball moves out wider, they'll sweep behind that. So it's a lot of hard mahi to do, but you're making tackles in the front line. And so you're often standing in the same place as a middle forward. So you might see Reece Walsh standing beside Tohu Harris in the middle of the defensive line, but Tohu Harris is tackling, I don't know, maybe over 90%, and the bloke right next to him is missing half as many tackles as he makes. So that's not helping your defense. So that just comes together for I just don't know what Reece Walsh is doing to help the Warriors win games of rugby league. And now he's benched, and I kind of just feel like Nostradamus predict these things type of shit, because all anyone wants to talk about is Reece Walsh being dropped. And it just overlooks his footy, good and bad, and it overlooks where everything from the Warriors actually starts. It's not Reece Walsh, it's Sean Johnson, Fanua Blake, Wade Egan, Tohu Harris. It's those dudes who set up everything else for the Warriors. So I was just interested in that, seeing how the Reece Walsh dropping has been reported, and just coming as some sort of big shocking move. And it's well, it's not. The Warriors, they play the Canberra Raiders this weekend, wildcard. Unless you got any little Reece Walshy takes here.
Well, he feels a bit like this thing that the Breakers keep doing, where they sign these international prospects, and then everyone tells us how amazing they are and what brilliant players they're going to be. But Ousmane Dieng's going to be a great NBA player for the Oklahoma City Thunder or whoever. Not for the Breakers. When he played for the Breakers, for the majority of the time he was out there, he made them a worse team. He made he missed shots. He missed defensive reads and things like this. The hype doesn't necessarily reflect the output, especially when it's just a short-term thing. Reece Walsh is a developing player. He's going to get a lot better as he gets more NRL experience. The Warriors aren't going to see the best of that because it's going to come with different clubs. That's fine. He did what he did while he was there. I kind of and I guess when there's that much focus on one dude, it becomes a bit of you're almost inviting more focus on it by dropping him in a funny way. But I also kind of don't see the point of continuing to pick him. At least with Chanel Harris-Tavita, because like you said, it's a weird one where he's also leaving and he's the guy replacing him at fullback. But there's a chance he might come back in a year or two. He's taken a year off. He might come back and play NRL straight after that. He might not. He might decide he doesn't want to play ever again. Fair enough. I expect he probably doesn't know, or if he thinks he knows, like we're saying at the start of the podcast about what you want at the start of your journey might not be what you want at the end of the journey. After a year off, he might well decide that he misses it. He wants to get back into it and he feels refreshed and whatever. Who knows? That will play itself out in due course. I don't we know for certain though that Reece Walsh is leaving, and I don't really see the point of him getting that many minutes other than if they think they can win games and that he can help them win games. And maybe this is what Stacey Jones is thinking, well, if we give him a different role and maybe more of an impacty thing off the bench, and maybe he runs a bit of dummy half or whatever, maybe that sparks things a little bit different, or he can be the icing on the cake that he should be for this team, whilst also isolating out his, the fullback errors that he has been making to this point. Because I mean, when they beat the Tigers in the homecoming game, Reece Walsh didn't play that game, did he? He had COVID, and they played quite well. And Harris Tavita in particular at fullback was excellent. I mean, there's surely been a lesson learned from that. Reece Walsh comes back in, they don't look so flashy, makes more mistakes. Well, you welcome to the NRL. Like, no matter how big the hype is, how much the talent is, if you continually put your team in bad situations, you probably should be dropped. Like, it might be a good thing for Reece Walsh's career down the line, but also it is clearly, I think, the best thing for the Warriors in the short term and in the long term to do what they're doing.
And Reece Walsh is named on the bench for the Warriors game to play the Canberra Raiders. I do not think Reece Walsh is a better number 6 than Dejan Arce. So I actually quite like Dejan Arce. I want to see him stick around with the Warriors, but he is off contract at the end of the season. So he might. So that's a Warriors decision, right? Reece Walsh is leaving. Chanel Harris-Tavita is leaving. They need to make a decision on Dejan Arce.
Yeah.
So what do? You give him some footy to see what he can do. And he's been pretty good in reserve grade with Redcliffe Dolphins, playing every game in the half. I reckon he's got a better kicking game than Chanel Harris-Tavita. And I like his kicking game as much as Reece Walsh's kicking game. Dejan Arce's a bigger body. He runs pretty well. He's got all the skills. Left foot kicking game, like Reece Walsh and Harris-Tavita. And he's just a more solid player than Reece Walsh. So I'm excited to see Dejan Arce get a crack, and he's probably better suited to that role alongside Sean Johnson than Ronald Volkman, who is another very good half as well. So like the Warriors know they've got Volkman under contract next season. They kind of know what they want Volkman to do, but they don't know what to do with Dejan Arce. So I think that's why they're giving him a crack in the halves alongside Sean Johnson for this game against the Raiders. Tricky game for the Warriors just because all these other teams are competing for top 8 spots. And to finish the podcast here, wildcard, I just want to roll through teams competing for top 8 spots and their Kiwi-NRL flavor and just a bit of a vibe on where they're at right now. You can drop we're running short on time, so just drop a sentence. Like, you have to condense it down to a sentence after each take here. Dragons, no Kiwi-NRL flavor, so fuck them. The Warriors are playing the Raiders, and the Raiders need to win this game to stay on the fringe of the top 8. So Dragons, Raiders, and Roosters all have 18 points. The Raiders, funky Kiwi-NRL club always. Matthew Tomoko, Joseph Tapine, Corey Harawira-Naira trying to get back into the top 17. He's on the bench. There is a young dude, Ata Mariota, who is a Manurewa junior. I think he's a Manurewa Marlins junior. He's on the bench. He's hunting NRL footy as well. I just want to see Joseph Tapine playing the highest level rugby league as possible always. And I think Matthew Tomoko is someone pushing for Aotearoa Kiwis selection. So if the Raiders do make a run, Tapine is going to be in hot form. Tomoko is going to be pushing for World Cup selection as well.
Beautiful. Might as well keep going.
Well, they're not the Dragons wildcard. You can't drop a hot sentence.
Yeah, I'm just ideally, because you're about to talk about the Roosters as well, I'm guessing next. Looking at the table, it might be a bit of a shootout between those 3 teams that you mentioned: Dragons, Raiders, Roosters, and Manly. Whether or not South Sydney can be caught, and I don't think any of those teams will catch Parramatta, Brisbane and Melbourne on 24s.
Well, just to take on the Raiders, like, don't you explain the whole thing here?
Well, I'm just saying, ideally, we want the Raiders for their, like you mentioned, Joey Tapine, and they have a good Kiwi group there. We want to see the Raiders in the playoffs. It is a difficult thing because also Dragons aren't going to make it. They got a terrible points difference and they're not going to win enough games. But the Roosters also have a pretty decent Kiwi group, and ideally they would make it too. Might not get so lucky though. It's just looking at the table, it might be a little bit of a like one outs between them and also Manly. But fire away on that Roosters call.
So Roosters are playing Knights. Knights are shit. So don't worry about the Knights. Roosters. Unfortunately, it's Tili Tupanuia. He's out for the season. Central Auckland healing is required. Joey Manu's still there. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves returns, and I think he's a massive player for the Roosters and Aotearoa Kiwis as well. So Tili Tupanuia's injury also opens up some bench room for Nofahu White, who hasn't done anything this season, but is a very talented young prospect from Auckland. Made his debut last year. I think he's a Waitemata junior. Went to Kelston Boys High School. Same journey as Satili Tupanui and Joseph Manu, been in the Roosters system for a long time, just a bit younger. So hopefully he comes off the bench, and I think he's got some Tongan flavour there as well. So he could a very robust edge or middle forward. But Waerea-Hargreaves, like frothing to see him play for the Roosters and back in the Kiwis. Any hot Roosters thought there, wildcard?
No, not really. Just repeating what I just said earlier about how ideally we'd like to see the Roosters and the Raiders sneak into finals footy. Maybe is not. Maybe it might have to be one or the other.
Manly Seagulls, they are 8th. Loving Morgan Harper's resurgence after that game against the Sharks. Siosifa Talakai, he's actually been, that changed his whole season. People thought he was going to get dropped. He's played a lot of games since then, and he's just doing a whole lot better. More tackle busts, more offloads, more better defending. Everything's better for Morgan Harper, so I'm happy for him. Also pushing for Aotearoa Kiwi selection, Christian Tuipulotu is massive. He continues his dynamic run of form. Kieran Foran, Josh Alawai, Toafafoa Sipley, both Samoan internationals, and Seagulls do have a bit of Kiwi-NRL depth in their lower grades, and that includes Raymond Tuaimalo Vainga, who is on the extended bench. He is I think he's another Maris junior from Auckland, and he is a very dynamic, powerful winger. Not all that different from Tuipulotu. Like, they are powerful wingers. So shout out Manly Seagulls. Rabbitohs, I'd rather see the Sea Eagles and Roosters and Raiders crack the top 8 than the Rabbitohs, which is just because Rabbitohs don't have a whole lot of Kiwi-NRL funk. Jackson Paulo, Saliva Havili, and Cody Nikarima are there, but the Roosters just aren't a very interesting Kiwi-NRL club. Then you're getting into Eels, Broncos, and Storm. Fantastic clubs. Fantastic Kiwi-NRL clubs. Storm are struggling a wee bit right now, and their depth is being tested. So I'm fascinated to see what happens there, especially because the Bromwich brothers are in their kind of final Storm stanza. Broncos have had a little bit of a change as well. Te Maire Martin is out of the equation there because Tessie Nu's come in at fullback, and he's been fantastic. So Te Maire Martin won like 5 games in a row for the Broncos, and now he is out of the equation. And like Xavier Willison's, he might have got injured in that lone appearance. He's not there. Dean Mariner's on the extended bench all the time. So unless Te Maire Martin's playing, like, I don't really care if the Broncos win, right? Like, I want them to win with as many Kiwi-NRL players as possible. And I think the Eels are one of the best Kiwi-NRL clubs. So I'd like to see the Eels get a bit higher up ahead of the Broncos and the Storm. That's a bit of a take that one. Tap into the Eels. They might, like, Ofahiki Ogden is a Mangere East junior as well as Maratini Okore, so that you might get some Eels games coming up with 2 Mangere East juniors in their forward pack. That's an interesting nugget. Sharks, Cowboys, Panthers. Spoken a lot about the Sharks. Shout out KL Iro, Cook Islands International. Might have come from Rarotonga to Auckland, and then he attended Mount Albert Grammar and is a Mount Albert Lions junior, was in the Warriors system. Then he moved to Newtown Jets along with other Warriors forward Tyler Slade. And now KL Iro has been signed to an NRL contract with the Sharks. So shout out to him. Cowboys, I'm all about Griffin Niami. Greymouth geezer, straight up the guts for the Cowboys. And a better Peter Hiku as well. He's pushing, he's holding things down as one of the best centers from Aotearoa. And then the Panthers, Fisher Harris. I actually like the Griffin Niami role, he's coming off the bench. last 2 games, he's directly replaced Jason Taumalolo. So you're thinking he just needs to continue what Taumalolo does on the field, which is 10 meters per run. That's the joy of that Kiwis team that had Moses Leota coming off the bench. And Scott Sorensen was in that squad as well. He's on the Panthers, in the Panthers team. Let me just double check this Panthers team list. Scott Sorensen on the bench, Moses Leota starting, James Fisher-Harris starting. So when you've got dudes like Moses Leota coming off the bench for the Kiwis, everything just sustains and maintains as far as ruthlessly dynamic carries goes. But now he's starting for the Panthers, and Scott Sorensen does that role for the Panthers. In the same way Griffin Niami does that role for the Cowboys, in the same way that it kind of depends on what's happening for the Eels, but usually they have Makahisi Makatoa and Maratunui Kore coming off the bench for them. So what are they doing? They're coming off the bench and they're adding their monster carries to the work of those starting forwards. And Broncos don't have a Kiwi NRL forward in that mold. Storm, Jesse Bromwich, Asafa Solomona, they're always starting. So it's kind of like those bench impact roles I think are really interesting. Eels have Makahisi Makatoa every week doing that role. Cowboys have Griffin Niami doing that role every week. Sharks kind of, Braden Hamlin-Uele has been injured, so now he's coming back off the bench, so he's doing that role. Bench efficiency. Less minutes, more efficiency.
It's the formula. Just quick word on the Storm, because they've often been a bit of a, not trailblazer is the wrong word, but they've kind of been at the forefront of the Kiwi NRL. Let's go with the takeover for the last several years. Bromwich brothers both going to Redcliffe, isn't it? And Brandon Smith going to Roosters. How does that look for them next season and beyond, just from the Kiwi perspective?
Massive opportunity for Asafa Solomona. Like, he's going to be the big dog, which is, I think, we overlook how consistently awesome Nelson Asafa Solomona is. Like, that dude is an absolute freak. So he's going to be a factor. Will Warbrick, the homie, Will Warbrick, can't get a run. Must be injured because they're putting Tyrone Wishart on the wing. Like, they're doing some weird shit with their backline, and he will benefit from being straight in there, former Sevens rep. So hopefully he's there for next season as well, and he can get a crack. Not a whole lot of Kiwi NRL depth there in the junior system. So if you're asking, like, moving forward, Jerome Hughes, he's going to be there at halfback. He gets better, right? So Matt, their Kiwi NRL top tier crew just goes down to Wellington. Asafa Solomona, Jerome Hughes. The Bromwich brothers there from Auckland, and the Waiheke Ram, he's going to leave as well. So then it's just Wellington, which is great. Wellington flavor at the best NRL club. And then it opens up, like, what's going to happen with their Kiwi NRL recruitment from Aotearoa moving forward. Because there's not much there right now. But as we're saying, there's room to grow. So keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on for all the Niche Cage content. We'll be back. Email tomorrow. Lots of yarns on our website. And lots of podcast content to enjoy as well. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Cha-cha.